those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
The Murder Hobo Show presents the Savage Rifter Podcast.
Oh, where are we?
Oh my god, there's a robot!
What? Run away!
I don't know what's happening.
Oh, it's like we're falling through rips in the time-space continuum.
Look out, we're in the middle of water!
There's only one way through this. Are you with me?
Yes!
We must fight!
The Savage Rifter Podcast.
Welcome to the Savage Rifter Show, episode 22. I am one of your hosts, Gary, a.k.a. The Murder Hobo, and I am here with none other than world-renowned and infamous riff superstar, DJ Jazzy Diaz.
Y'all ready for this?
The Savage Riff's G Plus community fame. What's going on, Victor?
Game on, Gary. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Savage Rifter Show. Always a wonderful pleasure to be talking to my friend Gary here at the Murder Hobo Show. Hope you guys are having a good time. I am recovering from a vicious sinus infection, and I'm finally able to hear my own voice, and damn, I sound good today. How you doing?
Yeah, you sound good.
Got my sexy voice on.
Nice. All right, this is a podcast all about Savage Riffs. We break down Savage Riffs piece by piece so Victor can teach me and you, the listener, how to play, enjoy, and understand riffs. What are we doing today there, big fella?
Today, we're going to be talking about converting Savage Riffs Deluxe to the new Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. We have our nice, wonderful guest here, Mr. Dustin, to talk about Savage Worlds Adventure Editions, give us some of the new rules, give us some of the shakedowns. I was listening to the podcast from with the Birchers talking about it, and Gary and I started throwing that up against the wall and said, hey, we need somebody smarter than us.
I definitely need somebody smarter than me. Yes, with 4.1 almost the final product, we're pretty confident that the rest of the changes at Savage Worlds are just going to be punctual. Hopefully there'll be no major mechanical changes. So today, we brought on a special guest, a Savage World savant, the gaming guru, the regal lord of riffs, and that guy that does Anything Can Happen Thursdays, Dustin the Savage Zealot Smith. Say hello to your fans, Dustin. That's say hello to me and Victor. We're your fans.
Well, hello. I got to tell you one thing. The ride over was a lot of fun. Getting out of the trunk was the hard part.
We should have used more duct tape.
That's right. I always thought it was
through the ball gag.
Well, we have lots of those. You don't have to worry about that. What's new and exciting? Right out of the gate, we're talking ball gags and good things like that. I've always been curious about your gaming schedule. You guys do a lot of stuff on the Savage Worlds GM podcast. And I'm just wondering, because you don't often talk about it, you're talking rules and stuff like that. What is your gaming schedule like? Like, for example, I usually play Sunday mornings now with some of the guys from the Wild Eye. We play 6, 7 o'clock in the morning till usually 9, 10. And then I go from noon to 3 to my local gaming store. I've been running a 50 Fathoms campaign there. But what about you? Do you ever play with the guys from the GM's Hangout? And
Yes, I do, actually. I don't know if you guys picked it up in the Jumpstart, but we have a product coming out pretty soon that goes by the name Dead End. It is a love letter to George Romero, and I'm one of the playtesters for that game. And so on Friday nights, I and the selected other playtesters will get together, and my character is actually a cult leader, so I am slowly converting the players to my way of thinking.
That's awesome. Nice. What platform do you use?
Roll20. Yeah, we still use Roll20.
So is there a lot of theater of the mind? Is there a lot of maps, minis, tokens, that kind of thing?
Yes, actually. Jared has macros that he uses, and we all have like our little icon, and we go through a little formula, but the maps and the minis, it helps sort of like keep things set up, gives you a better scale of how many people are there, gives you a better scale of where you are in relation to the action. But if it's not set up, we go theater of the mind if we have to. I mean, it's just little tokens to represent it.
Nice.
I go a lot more. In my games, I go a lot more all out. Like I break out GIMP and I literally cut out the background of full figures and paste composites together. Jared, he's more like this is the face or the icon of the character, and he works from there.
Yeah, I gotcha. We mostly use Fantasy Grounds when we play, and I've recently become a big proponent of Tabletop Simulator. It's quickly becoming my favorite simply because there's no mechanics in the background. Like you're saying with the macros and stuff like that. It's literally like it's a table in a 3D room, and the rest is up to you, which is kind of neat. So anyways, that said, that's pretty cool. So Dead End is, I'm not surprised that would be something that Jared would put out, because usually when he talks zombies. It's like he does the zombie thing all the time, I'm assuming. But that and Crazy Chickens and stuff, isn't it?
So Jared loves movies. He is definitely a fan of your classic zombie, your Romero zombies, but he's also a fan of really, really, really bad horror films from like the 60s and 70s, and the kind of films that end up becoming cannon fodder for Mystery Science Theater, and the games just become glorious.
Sometimes those are the best ones. The last one I played that was sort of off the chain was it was this chicken ones with these oversized chickens. I can't remember what it is, but I know it's a Savage Worlds deal. That's a product that's out there, and we had to go to this farm, and there was these oversized chickens, and I just remember I'd taken a shovel to one of the guys because I didn't want the chicken to get me. So my escape attempt was hitting another guy in the face with a shovel, and then I ran away. I think I got pecked to death anyway. Death by a pecker.
Chickens in the Mist, is that what that's called?
Yeah, it's Chickens in the Mist. It's part of the Pine Box. You can actually take the Pine Box setting and put it into ETU. ETU is sort of an extension of Pine Box.
Yeah, that's where ETU started.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've run games before that weren't related to it, and they would, if I needed a background or something to work with characters on, I would actually pull out ETU and just sort of use it as filler for those sections. I found that I was running a home game and I started losing parts of it, so I picked up ETU and I was like, this works great for just a modern setting.
Nice. So what do you think of SWADE so far? You've been paying much attention to what's going on with that. I'm sure you have, because you guys have been talking about it now for the last month or something like that on the show. It comes up here and there. What are your personal thoughts on it? You like the system? You like the mechanics, the changes? Everything's all good?
I really do. I love SWADE. There are some things that I know if you watch the podcast, you're like, man, they're really tearing into it. It's like, that's not what's happening. We're just really bitter, negative people in general, but we do love SWADE. I've been reading through it, and what's happening is we're going through that transition. I don't know if anybody here is a Doctor Who fan, but you always go through that period where you love this doctor, and then the doctor leaves, and you have this new doctor, and you hate them, and then you're like, oh, I love this doctor, and then the doctor leaves, and you're like, oh, okay, we got to do this again.
There's a lot of cool things that they've changed inside the new edition that I would definitely bring into games, even if I was playing deluxe. Even in the last little while, wrapping up my 50 Fathoms campaign, when they first came out with the power modifiers and stuff like that, the new way that spells went, I was like, oh man, I still want my players to be able to do this kind of stuff. And I started slowly incorporating little things here and there. The three attempts, or the three actions, I incorporated that in and changed the way that happens, which is really cool. But it's funny because, we talk about rifts and stuff, and you can do that. And when rifts came out, you could do that sort of right out of the gate. You could make 3 fighting attacks, or, that was part of the rules way back in the day. It was like a precursor to this new change. So anyways, we'll get into that later on. What else have you got going on? You got a company kind of a thing here. You're pumping out some products.
That's right. So there are 4 of us, and we've got me, Jared, Dave Scott, and Jeff. We're part of Atomic Ninja Game Studios, And we've got 2 products, one for deluxe and then one for SWADE, which the one for SWADE's kind of been a learning experience, but I got to tell you, Atomic Ninja Presents Adventure Archetypes. You'll notice that Atomic Ninja Presents is highlighted. I'm not so sure I can tell you too much about this, but if you hold on to it, you're going to see that it's going to be more of a product line than just a single containment. Like, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out under the Atomic Ninja Presents banner.
I can't wait, Dustin. I can't wait to read it all.
It's like for those of you that like Anything Can Happen Thursdays, just be ready for some really wacky stuff. Maybe not. We can't go with Rifts because that's owned by Palladium.
That's wacky. We don't want to.
Yeah, that's what
it is.
No, I can promise you guys, I'm completely insane. I will deliver the insanity. Like the motto, we all have like mottos for ourselves in the company. My motto is I bring the weird.
I love it.
Well, you brought the weird to this show. You popped out of a trunk with a ball gag, and nobody asked you to do that. I was like, you can sit in the front seat, but you're like, no, I insist. And okay, I mean, if that's how you roll, dude, I'm good with that. That was one of the things. We're gonna roll right into the news section. There isn't really much news going on with SWADE coming out. Savage Rifts related. We all know that we're getting books and stuff like that. But one of the first notes that I put, and this was from a previous show notes because 22 was going to be about something else. But you can see number 1 is what is Dustin doing with all those Anything Can Happen Thursday PDFs? Because there was you had compiled a bunch of them and you started posting them onto the new Mewe Rifts channel. And every time I read them, I just can't help but think if you would just take that next step, draw a little map, add a little bit more to it, and you could make one sheets out of those. Like you're 50% of the way there with the material that you already produce every Thursday with just the idea. All you got to do is just expand it into a few more paragraphs, and you got one sheet PDFs for days, and then you could throw that into a book and sign me up, man.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because Victor and I had actually discussed this on Mewe. And I think that the 2019 project, I'm going to be going back to G+. I'm going to be collecting those, and I'm going to be trying to flesh it out. I don't know if you noticed, but the most latest one has different options for GMs to choose from based off of what they want to go with. And I want to go back and I want to add those different options. See, the Anything Can Happen Thursday was always a prompt, and other people were always allowed to add in. And if they added in, I would go with it and I would sort of help flesh it out. So with this coming back for the 2019 project, in the spirit of that, I'm going to be going back. I'm going to be picking some of these up. I'm going to be fleshing out other options so that GMs can sort of like take it out, take it on. And I wanna encourage the community, the people who listen to the podcast, the people that are on Mewe, some of those stragglers that are still at G+ that haven't made it over yet, our artists, our writers. Just because it's Thursday doesn't mean it's all my show. Come on, people, put the hashtag up there. Join in on the fun. Let's get this gigantic book going. Like, let's make a volume of it. And I want to go back and actually have a full-on campaign that people can pick up and run with.
I'd be happy with a bunch of one sheets, to be honest with you. I think that's the hardest thing. That's one of the biggest questions over the last 2 years that I think I've received for Savage Rifts is how do you come up with adventure ideas? And I told them, just pick your wildest dream and go with it, because Rifts can handle all of that stuff. You want a flying dragon with a lynch riding on him and he's the good guy? Knock yourself out. I mean, just go look. I point them in your direction. I say, go look at Anything Can Happen Thursdays. I think that's a really great idea. I've always been a big proponent of trying to get the community to write all the content that all the game masters are putting together, because amongst all the 101,000 people that play the game, we all love it so much and we all have such great ideas, but we never come together to put them together. That was half the reason of the annual. There was so much good stuff written in 17. I mean, we had like 200 plus pages of that stuff. There's still stuff that I haven't used yet in some of my games, and I'm just dying to plug it in. All the character creations that I've seen for the character catalog, that's a community project. That's coming along great. I got 134 pages, for heaven's sakes, and I'm still editing a lot of it, reformatting it, putting into, making it look pretty, so to speak. And I'm really looking forward to the community project that we talked about with Dustin. Get a plot point campaign, get a bunch of one sheets. I'd be happy with 50 one sheets in one book. And this is the community's, contribution to the campaigns. One for every state. Let's get a one sheet for every state. Let's start with that. And then we'll go from there. And if it becomes, there's a larger string of stories that we can pull together and turn it into a community project of a plot point campaign for Savage Rifts. Hey, even better. Now there's even less work for people to complain about saying, oh, well, there's no adventures out for it, or it's too much work to put the games together. Come on. I mean, do we have to literally write it for you, hand it to you and say, here, just run it the way it is? And I know the answer to that question. Yes.
I've run 2 Savage Rifts campaigns. The first one, I linked together the one sheets. I linked them together and I just created a meta plot. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe at some point I should do that, like just explaining the concept of a meta plot and how you can link one sheets together for it. And the second one, we went with a monster of the week. I just created the meta plot for it, which was they discover a vault that had creatures in it. And I said, okay, here's the deal. Each one of you, talking to my players, each one of you creates the monster. Just give me the basic description of them, send it in, and I will create a monster based around it. So everybody got a sort of creature that came from their psyche that the group would have to fight at some point, and they were linked together. And I had players, they were upset. They were like, well, you're the GM, you're supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, but you're the player, you're supposed to be investing in this, and this is how I get you to do it.
Sure, it's your game. You tell me what you want to do. That's what I did when I started the Savage Rifts campaign here at home. It went like 11, 12, 13 sessions over the span of about a year. And we played through I took the old Machinations of Doom book for Rifts. It's a great game. It's a great little campaign setup. And I just took that whole little write out, used all the characters in them, used them as recurring, NPCs and other stuff in there. And I ran with it. Next thing you know, we're in, the Grand Canyon, talking to the Lynn Serials and just going crazy, literally going all over the Southwest, Texas, Louisiana, all over the Southern United States with these guys. And they absolutely loved it. But we invested the time in the beginning to make sure that they had some part of the story be about them, their fears, their family, their characters' lives. And they had told me that they had played many, many, many games before with a lot of different GMs over the years. And some of them have been playing games as long as I have, some of them not so much, but they're all veteran gamers. And they had said we had never done that like formally at the table. And at times I was doing it with 1 or 2 people, and then we get into the game. I do the same with 2 different people a couple games later, and we get back into the game and just kind of fleshing that story out and say, hey, this ties in really well with this plot line coming up. How do you want to handle it? I would talk to them offline about it, and I would talk to them at the table with everybody else's feedback. And they really appreciated it. They really saw that. They're like, hey, and now they're chomping at the bit going, oh, now that Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is out, can we play the new one with the same guys that we played before in a different campaign? And I told them, sure, let's write some stuff together. Let's put some things together. And it's so much easier now because they already know that they need to invest into that part of the story. This is what we need to do. They're already submitting stuff. Absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see how that goes. Hopefully later this year, we'll start that again.
The new SWADE edition, there's actually like setting rules, like conviction and consequence. That is perfect for that because that's one of the things that Savage Worlds and Rifts sort of did so well together is they got into that narrative character motivation, and SWADE has gone in on that. It's invested in it, and I'm looking forward to it so.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of games need to go. Well, I think all of us have played games long enough that we've realized that it's not the system, it's the story, and the players sitting around the table, their ideas of what their characters are about and how all those characters meld together into the story. Ultimately, that's the most important, the story in the end. And you've got to be able to have a system that at least addresses that a little bit, because if it doesn't, you're not going to want to play that game for a long period of time. It's going to be a 1 or 2 session game, a one shot, or, 1 page or 1 sheet, and you're going to be done with it. Go, okay, we killed some monsters today. And well, you might as well be playing board games at that point.
So did you hear Victor talking about how he has to come back in and he's got to put a bunch of stuff together and he's got to clean a bunch of things up? I told you it was Victor that came in and cleaned up the show notes, made everything look pretty.
Yeah.
I opened it up
that was
and,
me.
and right away I'm like, wow, they look really nice today. they're not all scattered all over the place. Oh, that's
It's
fantastic.
It's become habit, dude. Honestly, I've just, after writing, after putting together all the books that I've been putting together and all the stuff that I see, it's good practice. It really is good practice to edit other people's work and to get in the habit of making sure my stuff is presentable. But it just allows me the ability to do it so much quicker now than I used to be because of that practice. So it's going to save me time in the end. But really, I've taken all 30 something of the character catalog sheets, and there's some great characters in there. There's some good stuff. I love the Disney princesses. God damn it, I love the Disney princesses. Those are just,
Yeah, those were cool.
It's just, man, you wait. You've got to read the write-ups and stuff on them. You look in the book. It's just going to be sick. But going through all those pages and going through all that stuff, I only started going through it I was sick for about a week there where I didn't want to get in front of anything. But I'd say the last week and a half or so, I've been hitting it on and off every other day or so. And in just a couple of hours, I managed to get it all into one nice document. There's still some work to do. There's some information I'm missing. Something glitched when I put them all together. But ultimately, it's not going to take me much longer. I would anticipate by the end, should have something for everybody. That's
cool.
not a prediction. I think I'm going to be done with it here in the next few days and hopefully get it out to some people to just put another pair of eyes on it. It'll be cool. I'll send it to you guys. You guys can take a look at it. You guys will like what you see.
Did
Thanks.
you ever read Dragon or Dungeon magazine back in the day? Particularly Dungeon magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Inside a Dungeon magazine, usually in every episode once or twice, they would have this one-page adventure called a side trek. And I'm just thinking to myself, every time I see one of the Anything Can Happen Thursdays come out, I'd be like, this is, if Dustin just did a collection of these things and I had some cool art with a book full of these that I could roll through, bam, pick this out. Here's a little just, instant 20-minute little side adventure that we're going on.
I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, working with Atomic Ninja and working with this, we have started looking for artists, and I've been reaching out to a couple of different people, and I'll come across somebody that the other guys are like, well, they don't exactly work with this style, but I'll put them in my pocket for later because I'll keep in mind in case I have one of these other projects. And me myself, I've been downloading sheets of pose tutorials and arts, and I've just been practicing. So there's a chance I might be trying to add a little bit of art to some of the stuff that comes out. But yeah, man, I do enjoy creating these adventures because it's as close as I get to being a writer with something published.
Well, it's a good inspiration, not just, for your own games or to be able to use at the table, but it's good inspiration for yourself to be able to go through and stretch those creative muscles, write things down, share them with people, with the public. That's one of the greatest, what's the word I'm looking for? What's one of the greatest joys that I have of running the Savage Rifts, Google Plus community, now the Mewe community, and continuing to do so is getting my crazy ideas out there and finding other lumpy-headed weirdos who don't think my ideas are that crazy. And they just make me that much better of a player, of a game master, of a writer, and just a person in general, meeting folks and shooting things off of them and stuff. I think it's been really great. But having someone like you write Anything Can Happen Thursdays, just every week, it sparks a new adventure for me. It just hits that little button where I know it's going to be a great article. I know it's going to be a great little adventure seed that I can go after. And now that you've written so many of them, yeah, I mean, it's great. I'm hyped. I'm ready to go. I want to see this book done already. I want us to have this conversation in January 2020 and go, ladies and gentlemen, 150-page book of one sheets for Savage Rifts or whatever kind of setting that you want to put into. Oh, and by the way, there's a meta plot. And this is the couple of pages you can use to tie them all together with some art from Dustin and a few other people who've contributed, along with adventures from Gary, Dustin, me, and all the other gamers that are all on that board. I would love to see everybody contribute in one way, shape, or form and really turn into a community project. I don't think ever since I started Savage Rifts and the whole getting the community to circle around a game that we all love, because I knew there was lots of people out there that liked it just because I had played it so much at cons and with different people over the years. It's just great writing. I think one of the great things is no one has ever put together a community, especially of gamers for one game, and had the community right. Like all of us together, we've done something together. Because I can't take credit for any of the community annuals. Yes, I've put pages and, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. But 90% of the stuff written in there isn't mine. It's all from all the other lumpy-headed weirdos that are out there. So thank you so much for those of you who contributed to the character catalog, to the 2017 annual. I'm really looking forward to this next one, all the work that we have to do this year. Hopefully we can get a pretty decent product out there and for free, because it's by the fans and for the fans. That's how it's always been.
Nice. Roleplayers Imaginarium.blog. This is Shadow Patrick, Shadow Dad Greenlaw. I was just skimming back over there because I check it out every once in a while. He's been doing this Cryptids of North America. The Bigfoots and the what's the little Mexican dog? It's those little weird
Chupacabra.
The Chupacabra. Yeah, so he does articles on that, and then he converts them into like Savage Worlds monsters and stuff like that. But I was swinging by there looking for show notes last night, and one of the ones that he's got up there is finding inspiration in audio dramas. Now, I'm a big podcast fan. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. And inside this revisiting audio dramas for gaming inspiration, there is numerous links for some cool sounding podcasts that you could take a listen to for inspiration. And one of them that I want to add to this, that's not really going to give you inspiration, but is a really kick-ass fun podcast, is called now I forgot it. It's called Roll Replay. I'll have to look it up. I'll check it out on my phone when I get. But what it's about is it's this group of gamers that they take movies and they replay them in an RPG using GURPS as the mechanical settings, and whatever happens. It is the neatest thing.
Seriously?
They do Weekend at Bernie's, which is super funny. They did what is the Jedi one? Man, I'm losing serious nerd cred. Where they go to the planet to get the notes for the Death Star.
Rogue One.
They did 5 episodes on Rogue One. They did John Wick was another one that I've listened to. Like I've probably listened to 8-10 hours or more of these guys, and it's super cool. I'll look up the name of it on my stupid ass phone here, but I think it's sure.
That is
awesome.
That is really a neat idea. I mean, we always talk about it that steal plots, steal movie adventures, but to steal the whole script outright, literally, and then replay it, I've never thought of that.
You can go back like some of these old classic films. Even some that are in the public domain, you can, like Animal Crackers, can be a game of Deadlands Noir. You even have a pre-built cast. Animal Crackers is the old Marx Brothers film, and it revolves around the theft and forgery of a painting and some very dangerous people dangerous or quirky people. Another good one, I don't know if Patrick listed this, at Relic Radio. If you go to Relic Radio, it's old-timey radio shows. I listen to the horror on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
It's glorious.
I absolutely love the old radio shows for the use of the human voice to be able to replicate the different characters and the way they change their timbre, the way they change their tone. And you got to remember, back in that time, that was state of the art, but they didn't have 50 people in a studio playing all these characters. You would have one woman play all the woman parts. You would have, one guy with a high voice, one guy with a low voice. And it would be these 3 or 4 people putting on this live radio broadcast, or recording it and sending it out later. And I absolutely love the talent that those old radio broadcasts used to put on. I may have to go check that out. That's a neat idea.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Film Reroll. And it is actually pretty funny. It's just a bunch of improv actors. They use the GURPS mechanic, and it's like the one guy just tells the story of Weekend at Bernie's, and they all just they've probably seen the show in some situations and have the gist of what's going on. But that's the thing, when you're using mechanics to determine whether or not an outcome is positive or negative, the story takes an immediate turn for the worse, kind of a thing sometimes, right?
I'm looking at the website now. They did Jurassic Park, the movie.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Oh my God, really? Weekend at Bernie's. There's 2 parts to John Wick. Rogue One, From Dusk Till Dawn. Oh, that would be fun. That would be a fun game.
Right? How
Home
cool
Alone.
is that?
Oh, seriously?
And
oh,
even if-
wow.
Even if you
Oh,
know the
that-
story, you're still like, you could still just
I
role
just
play
want to
your
know
way
what
through
happened.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened. That's kind of cool. That is
Yeah.
some Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That could be a whole series in and amongst itself right there.
I have
Well,
to
not only
download-
that, but you can take some of like the film theories that people have, like going off of Home Alone. One theory is Kevin's dad is in the mob. Another theory is John Candy is the devil and Kevin's mom sold her soul to get back to him. Like, you can actually add that. You don't have
Sure.
to just stick
Just
with the
just
exact
change
plot.
the meta plot, right? Just change the meta, and that's all you
Just
need to worry
change it.
about.
Yeah.
It was the same. I now that you mention it, the big snafu that just happened this week with, or maybe last week, with Star Wars and the alternative video that an independent filmmaker made of Darth Vader and how Disney wanted him to shut it down, and Lucas and Skywalker's Ranch and all those people said, hell no, that is the best we've ever, everybody was raving. This is the movie that they should have made, not the Jedi nonsense they put together. This is what should have happened, because it was well written, well filmed, well produced, well directed, totally independent on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I highly recommend it. But it would be so awesome to play Star Wars using that meta plot versus the current plot. Go to the left.
I'm glad you agree with me, because on the GM podcast, they refuse to allow me to talk about Star Wars because I just have a meltdown. Like, I just go nuts.
I mean,
And I'm like-
I mean, for heaven's sakes, I have Jedi in my Rift's Earth, for heaven's sakes. I mean, it's just one of those things. In my personal opinion, the newest movies and the Jedi movies were good. They have good production value. The stories are solid and they're based off the history of Star Wars. I'm not knocking the film. I personally think they're okay. They should have been better. I expected more, but I was there in '77 when the first film hit the first screen, and my expectation of the writing from then to now has not improved. And I think, in my opinion, and all the Star Wars fans are going crazy right now, shaking the screens and hitting the speakers right now. But I think the alternative version of the writing in the YouTube video that I saw is where they maybe not should have gone with the plot, but that was what I was expecting. It was those kind of jaw-dropping moments that not only are great at the RPG table, because now I want to go back and play that game, but they're great when you see a movie like that, because it's rare to have a movie make me stop and go, oh my God. And when that happens, you got me, because it's difficult.
And I've said this, whenever you're critical of it, whenever someone is critical of it, Lucasfilms or Disney will go after the fans and say, you can't. I don't have a problem. I think the actors and actresses that they hired are great. I think Finn is great. Daisy Ridley is doing the best she can with what she's got. She is incredibly talented.
Yep. Beautiful.
I'm not knocking them, but I will knock the fact that they are disrespecting their villains. That's my problem. Adam Driver, good actor, former Marine. In real life, he could just wreck somebody. Gwendolyn Christie, incredible actress. She has presence. Dominique Cooper, I think that's the guy. I don't know. It's Hux. He was in The Revenant, and he really played he did a good job. The actors are doing the best they can with what they've got. But if you don't respect the villains, and the mythology, you've lost me.
That's what the whole movie was about. That's what all the movies were about in the beginning. It was never about, good and evil, black and white. That was all that's what came from the actual premise of the entire story, was the bad guys drove the whole thing. Every single person that has ever seen more than one Star Wars movie will tell you, what do you remember? Well, there's that guy that does the magic stuff, but then there's that guy all in black, Vader guy. He's evil. Oh, and then there's a Boba Fett guy. Oh, and then there's Jabba. Oh, and then whoever tells me Han Solo's a good guy needs to be shot, because he's not a good guy. He just happens to make the right decisions at the right time based off of what he was doing. But we digress. Enough Star Wars. Let's get back into Savage Rifts, because that's what we're all here to talk about. We'll do a Savage Rift Star Wars episode later on. We'll add that to the list of things that we need to talk about.
We should
So-
at
All right.
some point we should get together. I still feel Interface Zero 2.0
Oh yeah.
is the best one to run Star Wars off of.
Oh, by
If you
far.
want, if you want aliens, that's your
Yeah.
hybrid.
Interface
All right.
Zero to me is probably one of the best designed settings for Savage Worlds next to Deadlands. That says a lot.
It's
That
pretty
says a lot.
robust. I think he
Yeah.
really was trying to do too much, but I feel like he wrote the unofficial sci-fi companion.
You know what? It's. I think he had no choice because he wanted to run Shadowrun using Savage Worlds rules. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And there is so much of everything that's science fiction-y, if that's a word, in Interface Zero. It's just it just works. He managed to put it all together and get the science fantasy, the science fiction, the futuristic, and the whole way out there, orcs and elves fighting each other in modern times with guns kind of idea. Because Shadowrun is its own IP. To be able to replicate that, the way he did it in his own style, I mean, it's just, I go on and on about Interface Zero. Love Interface Zero. I'm really looking forward to Interface Zero 3.0.
All right, I'm back. What did I miss? You guys look like you were talking Star Wars.
You should have never hit the button and walk. That's all I-
Third and final
Yeah. Anyway,
on the
so
list
let's
of
go to
news.
it. Yep, Sean Masters, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. He is going to have Kevin Simbita himself on the next show for the Voice of Hope podcast. Yes, I know the one and only Mr. Rifter himself. Kevin is going to be on the show. What do you guys think about that?
I
Guys,
know I'm excited.
I had the privilege of hanging out with Sean Masters and Sean Patrick Fannin at MarsCon, and like he told me that Kevin Simbita was going to be on the show, and like my jaw dropped. I was like, "Can I be on that episode?" And he's like, "Yeah, I mean." But I'm looking forward to it because like you always see the picture if you get the Rifter, like you'll see the drawings and such. But now we're gonna actually hear the voice, and we're gonna get inside the head of the man, and that's got to be a very cluttered place because a lot is going on in Rifts.
Yeah, we've been trying to get our schedules together to get it to work with Kevin's schedules to, because we record so late in the evening, it's tough for him to be able to get into a recording session with us. So we're trying to make that work too. But kudos to you, Sean. I'm really looking forward to it. Dustin, if you can tell Kevin we said hello, big fans. Really appreciate
feel like
everything he's written so far.
I feel like the pressure's off. We're gonna let Sean take the initial heat, and yeah, this guy Kevin just I always imagine that he sits on the toilet and still writes, like he's just continually writing. He has to. Nobody can put out that many words.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, Riffs is not the only IP that he's created. There's a whole slew of Palladium products outside of Riffs that he writes for. I mean, he does have other writers, but you're right. He must be constantly just everywhere he goes, putting down these ideas, these notes, these things I want to write about. I'm going to write about this. No, I'm going to finish this and go to this and get back to this from 1998 and all kinds of other stuff. So if you get a chance, Dustin, and you remember, let him know. Savage Rifter wanted to know, when is he going to write the book about Aaron Tarn?
We've got to coordinate the schedule because I still want to live in the place I currently live at. So that means I might have to just say, nah, I gotta spend time with the person whose name is on the lease. But yeah, if I can coordinate that with him, I will.
Yeah.
And if the next time you see me, I'm in a van. Now you know what happened.
I would be afraid to invite him on the show with you two guys. It would be like I would just hit the record button and I would wander off for a couple hours. I'd go watch some of The Punisher season 2 or something like that. Roll back, you guys, and be like, "What about this, Kevin?"
I have some questions. I would be like, Kevin, what were you thinking? Why did you kill this guy off? What is up with the Grand Canyon? Why is Phoenix a blip on the radar? It should be more. What were you thinking when you put together the guys that are chasing after all the vampires? Doc, gosh darn it, my brain.
Doc Reed.
Yes. What were you thinking with Doc Reed and those? You gave away the whole ending of the nuclear explosion and the whole destroying of the vampire monsters and everything else. There's just so many, and the Zydakicks. I won't even. I mean, yeah, and creepy crawlies. It's gross. I get it, but there's more there that you're not telling us.
Okay.
There's so much more to the sidekicks invasion that could happen. I mean, seriously, like, can you imagine what happens if the coalition states and the sidekicks actually start to go at it? I mean, the attrition rate there is just going to be absurd because there's billions of these sidekicks in the Midwest. And I mean, billions of these things. And the coalition doesn't have that many men, but they've got a lot more bullets. So, you've seen, it's just that I just have 101.
One of the characters that I submitted for the character showcase is a power armor pilot from the future, and I named him Skull. Skull is zombie. Skull is a zombie power armor pilot. When the Zydakicks decided to actually like push forward, it was so much that it forced the Federation and the Coalition to work together. So you have bodies that are just reanimated to fill up Coalition machines because they can't keep up. And I always pictured Jack Nicklaus in power armor. Wait till they get a load of me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've been reading through these characters and I've been talking about the character catalog, and I've been living that life, editing that for the last couple of weeks, and absolutely amazed at some of the stories and the storylines that are coming in there. But one of the things that I have purposely not been doing, and I don't think they're in the catalog, there are no credits on who wrote what, or at least not that I've seen so far. Like, your name is not on Ariel that I can see anywhere. I'm going to have to go back and correct that because now that you're talking about it. But where's Skull at? Oh gosh, hold on. I have to page through like 101 pages. Let me show you guys what I'm looking at here.
All right, simmer down, nerd boys, simmer down. We got a show to do here.
No show. We're going to talk.
You guys just took a left turn to Crazyville.
No, there's some good stuff. You guys can see all these characters that I'm going through and reformatting here. But where was Skull? He was right there. I was just looking at him. How can you not love that face? I mean, that is just freaking awesome.
Wow.
I'm serious as a heart attack. There are 58,000 words in this document, 133 pages. And there's Tiana, there's Pocahontas. Oh, I love Pocahontas.
What program is that, Victor?
This is Word.
Oh, is it?
This is Word, 2016. It's the
Wow.
Office 365 subscription. Anyways, it's just easy and quick and dirty for me to do. I didn't want to put it into InDesign because that's just overkill for an easy, simple document like this. But I've been flipping through all of them. And, this is the beginning of Jasmine. That's the first one we started with, and just started going through them all and just trying to make it into a format that everybody can read and make them all similar. That's why I wanted everybody to use that template on Google Plus, so they would at least have some similarities. So I'm going through and editing and changing and highlighting and doing a bunch of other stuff so it'll look pretty in the PDF. But there's just some good stuff, as is just crazy. That's a fire-breathing dragon. Balthazar Bright. He's an operative special ops. Beauty and the Beast. Now, Beauty and the Beast, what the hell were you thinking here, Dustin? I mean, that's just awesome. And honestly,
I reversed it. She's the one that's the outsider because it's the Federation of Magic.
You just totally flipped the script on me. I was reading through this and I'm going, wait a minute, this don't make any sense. And and then I start getting to the character narrative and I'm like, oh, Federation of Magic upper crust. She's a little too hoity-toity for her own power, so on and so forth. That's just awesome.
All right. Are you guys just about done?
Yes,
Can we get back to the show? Oh, man, I'm going to have to go back and edit all of that out. You guys just went off on a side tangent.
You like it just as much as we.
They charge you for bandwidth, don't they?
It's cool. I do enjoy it. That is for sure. All right. Well, that's it for the news and for the beginning rambling section. So let's split over to the Nexus points. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this episode.
An hour later of this podcast, we're finally getting the
world's
Nexus points.
Longest intro.
Nexus points.
Question number 1. Should you convert to Savage Rift's SWADE version? And if so, why? Dustin,
take it away. Take it away, Dustin.
In all honesty, I say yes. I say yes because there are certain setting rules that just fall right in line with the narrative aspects. It grasps the spirit of that. You get this fast, you get this action-packed. The character creation, they've gone back, they've taken some of the edges, they've fleshed them out. Like take for example, Beast Friend. You have multiple layers to Beast Friend. So if you were, say, a Splicers fan and you wanted some Gorehounds following you around,
Yes, please.
you could take Beast Friend multiple times, and you could get multiple wolves, and you could add multiple stats and skills to them. You take Wizard. We'll talk about that later on, but Wizard is completely changed. Now you can change the trapping. So if you wanted to be a Warlock, you didn't have to be confined, like based off of the rules. Your power can be changed by spending more points to adjust that trapping. So yes, if you are really like a Rifts purist, go back, get SWADE, start working it into your mind, and you will see that this is really in line with what you want.
I would tend to agree. What I've seen so far of the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, it hits all those problem areas that we talked about when Savage Rifts first came along. Because Savage Rifts pushes the system so much, it's so much of the high end. And by the high end, I mean multiple high-end dice rolls, multiple raises in one hit. I mean, I did 45 points of damage at a demo game or a playtest game with Sean Patrick Fannin at Rincon a couple of years ago. And I've never seen that happen at the table before. That was an absurd amount of damage in one roll. And he's like, dude, that's Savage Rifts all the time. Like you're rolling 20s, 30s on average of the stuff that you're doing. And I think because it pushes it so much, I think Savage Worlds Adventure Edition cleans up all those gray areas that were problems and rough spots in the system that that were showing because of what Savage Rifts was capable of. And I completely agree with you. Convert it while you can, and start saving your pennies for the Kickstarter, because there's going to be a Savage Rifts conversion document that's going to be added in as part of the Kickstarter for all 3 books in the Kickstarter. I think I'm going to cut them out all at once. So really looking forward to that. And I agree with you. Convert it. I think it's perfect. It's a perfect marriage. It gives everything, all the other options and all the other system mechanics that all the other Rifters were asking about before. I think it really closes them up, and it makes it really, really solid. Becomes a really much more solid product than it used to be. And honestly, in my opinion, I think Savage Worlds Deluxe Edition was starting to show its age. I think it just needed to be cleaned up. It had been played a lot, 1,000 million hours of play testing, and I think it does it really well.
I'm going to take a different stance on this and say don't convert it. And the reason is, and I'll tell you why. This is why. When I was looking at the document last night and I was going through the player's handbook, there's certain things in there, certain abilities that you get, like namely charisma. With charisma gone from the game, you have a lot of characters that have skills like the cyborg automatically gets penalties for charisma, so that will come into play. We're going to talk about that later on a little bit here too, but even the crazy and stuff like that. Like there's so many edges and things that are that hinge on charisma, and I know that it's completely gone from the game, but it's like it's already stepped outside of Deluxe by becoming its sort of own gaming entity, like you said, with all of the extra mechanics and all of the extra dice and all of this extra stuff. It's already more for lack of a better word, powerful than Deluxe was mechanically. So to convert it, and this is going to lead into the second question that I have, is Rifts more powerful than SWADE? Because when they built the Rifts, you know what I mean? Like you're doing phenomenal amounts of damage. You're already allowed to do multiple spell castings. There's so much in it already. And plus then you have the added charisma that you're going to have to deal with and stuff like that. I would say that if you have the stuff now, like with the current content, it's already built for Deluxe, and don't waste your time converting it. Although I feel SWADE is better than Deluxe, I just think that Rifts, if you had to put them in tiers, I would say that Deluxe is is your bargain basement. Then Rifts stepped it up a notch, but I feel almost as if SWADE stepped it up a notch one more time. But Rifts is in that sweet spot in between the two of them, and I would just see that you would have to do so much to convert it for not really so much more. But there's more to it than that. I would say read the SWADE, definitely get SWADE, and take the cool mechanics out of SWADE and just implement them into your Rifts game, like the powers and stuff like that. We'll get into that in a bit, but that's just sort of my take. But again, out of the three of us, I'm the Rifts noob, so take my word for a grain of salt. But I would just say stick with what you got because it's already built for what it is, and you're now, and then just take the cool stuff.
Your argument is valid, Gary. I don't agree with you, but I think no, really, you have a valid point. There's no reason why you need to change over to Savage Worlds Adventure Edition for Savage Rifts. It's a great game. I've played a year's worth of campaign with just what is written straight out of the books and a little massaging of my own imagination. I didn't really create any new rules, change anything, adapt anything. I didn't even follow a lot of the latest updates to the deluxe edition. I just kind of stuck with it the whole time, the way it was, and played fine. Played quick. Everybody got a grasp of it. They all enjoyed it, and they're ready to jump into another campaign here quickly. I'm just not prepared. But I agree with you. There's no reason why you need to change it. I don't see any reason why you have to convert it. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, but like I said earlier, if you got a few ducats sitting around, go get ready for the Kickstarter because I don't think we're going to have to do a lot of work. I think the Birchers and them are going to take care of most of that for us. And if you really want charisma in your game and you want to play the latest one, add it back in.
I'm interested to see how. Yeah, I'm interested to see how they're going to pull it out, how they're going to change all of the classes that are based on it. I'm sure they've got it already figured out and whatnot. But on to the next question. I want to pose this one to Dustin. Is Rifts more powerful than SWADE? And what I mean by that is, so in Deluxe, you could do multiple things. You would get your action penalties, but you couldn't really cast spells 3 times in a row. You could throw something, you could cast a spell, you could whack somebody with a sword and do your multi-actions. But when Rifts came out, inside of Rifts, you could now cast multiple spells. And some of them you would get as free actions. So, sometimes in some of your characters, you could pull up your shield, buff one of your buddies, and cast an attack spell. And you can do that now inside of SWADE, because you can shoot 3 times, you can swing your sword 3 times, you've got that cap up to 3. So I'm just wondering what your take is on it. Do you think that with SWADE now coming out, changing the way that you can do stuff, adding the addition of I'm not actually nowhere near it. I thought I was close to it. The spells, I just want to remember what they're called. So the where did it go? The power modifiers. With the way that the spells have changed, we got to talk about the spells too, man, because they're so cool. And just the ability to add extra power points to do things like increase the range and add lingering damage or put heavy weapon on any spell. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Powering up, yeah.
So I'm just curious to know what your take is on that, because I know that from Deluxe to Rifts to SWADE, I feel like Rifts and SWADE are very similar, and I'm almost wondering if Adventure Edition hasn't just taken that one step farther and become maybe a little bit more powerful than Rifts, if that makes sense.
I think that Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is sort of coming in line so it can flow more easily with Rifts. Speaking about power modifiers, Rifts had the mega powers, meaning that if you added more, and so now the power modifiers, they're not quite mega powers, but they are sort of this middle ground. If you go back, there was a setting book, there was a toolkit, and I recommend it for everybody. It's called Agents of Oblivion by Reality Blurs, and it had power modifiers like it had the ability to increase damage, it had the ability to make armor heavy armor, it had something called, you could change the shape, and you could actually make powers that were triggered. Meaning that if you had a healing power and you were knocked out and incapped, it would you get an automatic free roll. Now, Pinnacle did not go full in the way that Agents of Oblivion did, and I actually thought it was great. I am thankful that they added the power modifiers, because that gives more variety, that gives more diversity, that gives more options to your characters. And in a game setting like Rifts, you absolutely need that. If your character concept, if your character concept is going to fit, it needs to be able to sort of flow through all these different kinds of creations.
I think everybody's going to be playing. If you're going to play Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, I think everybody's just going to be playing Savage Rifts. I think Savage Rifts has already been doing what Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is doing now. In terms of power level, in terms of stretching the system, giving the growth and, you know, having the balloon get bigger without it popping. I think everybody's just going to be playing the game that we've been playing for years now.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen when they come out with the next Kickstarter and release the 3 books, SWADE style. Like, I think that'll solidify my whether or not you should convert one way or the other when I see what they've done with the next books, how they incorporated, or, you know, the removal of charisma because it's not part of the game, and then added in power modifiers. The spells inside of Adventure Edition now have to be my absolute favorite. It's so cool to be able to sit there and say, I'm going to buff everybody in one swoop and roll your dice and boom, everybody has a bonus to their, you know, their shooting or their fighting or whatever, right? Or you want to buff somebody with armor, it's bam, you got the whole group for extra power points. And one of the other cool parts about it too that I really like is the idea that it doesn't get harder. There is a penalty to pay to cast more magically spells that are more draining or taxing, spells. Right? Yeah, boosted spells.
It's called more power points. You're going to drain your power points, like you're going to empty the tank.
I'm just glad they didn't make it more difficult, if that makes sense. Like it's not a harder number to beat. It's just more of a drain on your person. I'm really glad they went that way.
Yeah, I know. There was we were having that same discussion about mega powers in Savage Rifts when we were playing the Machinations of Doom campaign here at the table. And they were saying, like, how come these powers are so much better and they're not harder to use? You know what I mean? Like, it's like the difference between casting a 1st level spell versus a 9th level spell in D&D. It's much more difficult in terms of the energy, the power, the skill roll, the requirements for the spell, the material components, so on and so forth. And that was one of the questions that came up. And I honestly didn't have an answer for it. My reasoning after thinking about it for a minute was it just makes the game faster. Why waste time getting another skill roll that's going to be already more difficult for something that's just going to be a cool effect? They're already paying for it in PowerPoints. Why make them suffer through another roll or make it hard? Plus, it's another roll at the table. And, you know, as soon as you start adding rolls and making the rolls even more difficult, more bennies get spent, more resources get spent at the table by the player. And sometimes those resources are very finite. And in Rifts, if you've played it at all, the Savage Worlds version, bennies fly like crazy. You're burning through ammo, credits, all kinds of stuff, just trying to get through the adventure that you're having. So to add in another difficulty to the already craziness of Savage Rifts, I think would have just slowed it down too much.
Inside of Genesis, when you can do all this cool stuff too, you can be like, I want to make a more powerful spell. I want it to go farther. I want it to do this. But every time you do that, it's at a difficulty dice. And I'm not a huge, I don't really know the Genesis rules. I've played it a couple of times, but that just seems to me.
Cost, right? Like, they don't have a power pool.
Yeah, and it just seems to me that you're making it more difficult, which increases your chance of not succeeding. Whereas Savage Worlds went the route of the chance of succeeding is equally great. It's just the PowerPoint cost is this. So I feel like it's cooler because your chances of getting off that awesome spell and doing that cool thing are greater inside of Savage Worlds.
That's where. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Savage Worlds, that's where the cinematic part of Savage Worlds comes in, where it makes it more of the fast and more of the fun. It makes more of a cinematic style game, which is what the system is built around. You know, big show kind of action scenes that you're going to have with your player characters. Where I'm not as familiar with Genesis, but I don't see Genesis being that kind of game. I think Genesis is more meta than Savage.
I'm something that I'm noticing that I'm thinking is really awesome is some of the additional setting rules, some of the ones that have just come out. Obviously, you're going to want to pick up more skill points so you can still have the 15 to build with. I'm going to say Born a Hero, but some of the new ones, you've got fast healing. I don't know if you want to add that, but what it does is it allows you to make a healing roll every day. Then you've got conviction, to where from a narrative plot point, you can actually get an extra Benny that is a one-time use, but it goes from session to session because you either achieve something or you're on a rampage. It just adds to that whole character bit. Creative combat for a roll that you can roll on just to see if you're running out and you want something, that's great. Unarmored hero, if you're not wearing any armor, it adds +2 to your soak rolls. And I mean, for character concepts, like if you wanted to play Conan,
Oh yeah. Oh
you would
yeah.
need that.
Oh yeah.
You would need that.
Oh,
I'm
well,
saying,
sure.
I'm saying Vagabond, just take the stats of a great chainsword, no armor, you're going to need that +2. And also, I think GM should throw in wound cap, because things go squish really quick in rifts. Like wound cap will prevent your big bad from dying from the first shot.
Yeah, I agree. But you noticed a lot of the concepts that you're talking about, a lot of those are Rifts concepts. They came
really,
in,
yeah.
You know, they
are.
weren't systemically built into the Savage World system. They were more like bolt-ons to make Savage Rifts accommodate the Savage World systems. And now, either through wisdom or just sheer blind luck, and I'm sure Shane is smarter than that, they've thrown it into the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition to make it standard for all systems, so they can use it in all the other games. Because I think it would be great. Can you imagine taking some of those setting concepts, right, those campaign rules, and then putting that into like a Solomon Kane game?
I'm serious.
It totally changes the game. Yeah, totally
Unarmored
changes
hero,
the game.
yeah.
It changes the power level of the game. It changes the depth and breadth of the abilities of the characters and what they can and cannot get away with. Just makes it so much more fast, furious, and fun. And that's what it's all about.
So, Beasts and Barbarians, Eric Lamoureux's favorite setting. I'm pretty sure, yes, no, it is Beasts and Barbarians, has an edge called Bikini Warrior. and that's exactly what it is, man. If you're wearing a loincloth, or you're wearing like just the bare bones basics Conan style loincloth, you get an extra you get some kind of extra toughness or something out of the deal. The wound cap, Dustin, what is that? How does that work?
So the cap is 4 wounds. That's death. That's what you have to roll to soak. How that happens in rifts, you, like Victor said earlier, you are throwing 30+ damage. I mean, one glitter boy will wreck your day. But if you want to keep it going, if you want to prevent everything from dying with the first hit, wound cap is the way to go, because you never have to soak more than 4 wounds.
Right. So right out of the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition 141, it says characters can never suffer more than 4 wounds in a single hit, and therefore never have to soak more than 4 wounds either. Wow.
Gotcha. So if you were at 3 wounds and you got hit hugely again, it never goes past 4, and you would just have to soak those 4 wounds.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotcha. Okay. I was pretty sure that's how it was working. One of the other interesting things, we'll hit this later. So the next thing on the list was the core creation process for this setting is essentially the same as for any other Savage Worlds character. That sentence comes right out of the beginning of the player's the player's Legion Tommorow players book, and I thought that was very interesting when I read that, because that just means that if that's the way that you're building characters for Rifts as a core, then you won't have any problems converting just by using the SWADE rules to convert into whatchamacallit. But the second part is the 2 major differences are your choice of the iconic framework and the rolls that you get off the heroes' journey tables. So that's really cool, though, if you think about it then, because then you could just take the deluxe rules and set them aside, and when you go to convert, all you essentially have to do is just build your character out of the SWADE rules and then just roll from the iconic
framework and the heroes' journey tables.
So
pretty much. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I think you could get away with that.
Yeah, so nice and easy. Here's where we're going to go back to the wound cap thing. So inside of SWADE now, you have the ability to make your larger characters have more wounds. If you guys were playing a dragon inside the game, as they progressed in levels, would you give them more wounds?
So they gain in size, right? And at certain sizes, they gain more wounds. As it goes along, they would eventually run out of bennies, but yeah, I would let them have more wounds. They would become much harder to kill, but I would allow it. Mostly because
I
I'm
wouldn't
one of those.
I wouldn't. I would allow it too because it's so much fun, right? It's right in with the character story, and it's a dragon for heaven's sakes. I mean, that's greatest mythical creature known to man or ever imagined by. But I wouldn't worry about killing it. It's rifts. I mean, a couple boom guns and a missile, I'm good to go.
I'm going to say something. I'm just going to say, if you've ever played Palladium Fantasy or the original Rifts, one ogre will wreck a dragon's day.
Yep. Right from the horse's mouth, ladies and gentlemen.
They will eat your dragons.
Yep.
They will they will hunt you.
Mm-hmm.
What was on the so the plus minus 4 max modifiers. How do you guys think that is going to affect rifts? Now, this is an optional rule. You can go more, you can go less, but for simplicity's sakes, one of the things that I find that they did in this book was they really sort of took a sort of a chunk out of ICRPG, where its motto is make everything simple, and that's what this speaks to. The plus 4 modifiers on your anything that you do, let's say your unstable platform, it's dark
so no matter how many modifiers you get, the most that you can have is plus 4 or minus 4 within that range, regardless of how many extra bonuses, edges, combat advantages, whatever it is that you get, the most that you can have.
This is an optional rule, but I do like it in the sense that it's easy, and it will make the game, as it says, fast furious. It's going to make the game fast because you're not spending all of the time. I feel like this rule, especially you would understand this, Victor, because you know ICRPG. This is the rule where you're no longer looking up stuff in the book. If the guy's like, I'm on this train, it's going a gazillion miles an hour, it's windy out, and it's dark. 2. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And that's it. Right. You don't have to look at the books. You just, as a GM, as a game master, say, this sounds like it's going to be really hard, minus 4.
So I'll take a shot at this one first. For Savage Rifts, I wouldn't use it. For Savage Rifts, I would let the numbers fly, because that's half the fun of the game. That's half the fun of Rifts, is all that crazy math. I'm going to roll 6d6 plus 12 with an armor rating of 25, and he's flying and he's jumping and he's on fire and solar eclipse, and I'm fighting in the dark with night vision, and I've got a scope and I've got a long range gun, and he's got cover and I don't, and that's half the fun to me. Yes, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's hard. But for a simpler setting like Deadlands, I would use the roll plus or minus 4, because it's not as wacky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I know zombies and cowboys, but it's not as wacky. I think like Beasts and Barbarians, I would use the rule. Sure. It doesn't get too crazy. There's not enough out there. There's not enough modifiers in one combat that would really make the difference. But I mean, if you're going to be, riding a rocket with your hair on fire, shooting fireballs at a dragon that's coming at you, and there's some robot skeletons on the ground, come on. I mean, I want to be able to add plus 16 to my hit roll. That's half the fun too. So for Savage Rifts, I would say no. For other systems that are for other settings that are a little easier, yeah, I would use the rule. That would make.
Dustin, what do you think?
I like that it's optional.
So guys, I got to tell you, man, I always thought that this was actually from Savage Worlds Deluxe, because I remember reading in character creation and certain aspects that you couldn't go above plus 4. That was always the cap. So this doesn't look really new to me.
I think they just made it an optional rule for Adventure.
You're gonna have to go back and
go back Deluxe. And look at Deluxe.
I'm looking at my Deluxe book right now, and I'm trying to find the rule, but I want to say you're correct.
No, I don't want to say that. Screw Dustin. Cyborg. Cyborg.
He's like, all right, change the subject. Next.
Fleet-footed changes. In Deluxe, it's a let's see, is it a D10 in Deluxe, and it changes to a +1 die type. So it's one of the few it's one of the changes that directly affects the Cyborg class. Fleet-footed changes D10. I don't know why I cannot read my own stuff tonight. And inhuman appearance is -2 charisma. With charisma gone, here we go. Would you apply another penalty? How would you guys deal with charisma being taken out of the game in SWADE? Dustin, take it away.
Charisma, it's just negatives to persuasion. That's all it is. Negatives to persuasion,
intimidation,
and negatives. Yeah, well, it would be a bonus to intimidation.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I mean. But it's just a penalty or bonus to a social interaction skill.
Yeah,
it no longer needs to be a statistic. It's just a penalty skill, or a skill penalty, excuse me, or bonus.
I would say that I would apply that to networking, because here's the thing. If you're using networking to intimidate somebody, you're a cyborg. They're going to see you coming. And if they see you looking at them coming, they're going to run away.
Oh, yeah, you're already
Persuasion.
intimidating enough, right?
Yeah, they're going to try and get away from you before you get there. So I'd apply that to networking, whether you're doing persuasion or intimidation.
So I probably confused you a little bit with that, but let's say that the cyborg as a hindrance gets this negative to charisma. Maybe we were on the same page and I'm just not quite getting it. But you know, like the characters are sort of balanced in the sense that if they have a good thing, they have a bad thing. You know, there's a bonus and there's a negative. So if you're taking the charisma modifiers as either a bonus or a negative, let's say one of the classes it gets a +2, but charisma is now not a thing. Would you replace that with maybe give them the edge charismatic if they got a bonus to it in replacements, you know, to fill in the spot of the edge or hindrance they lost? And
so Sean Masters and I had a pretty good conversation about this because he rolls with Cyber Knight, and I was saying that you should go with charismatic to get that free reroll. He says, no, you should go with aristocratic. And we got to discussing it. Now, aristocratic as the edge, what it does is it gives you that +2 with like high-ranking officials, but like low-level people don't really know. And that kind of makes sense because if you're like a farmer or somebody that's like a grunt, you wouldn't know about the Cyber Knights. They're just a myth. You know, somebody walks into your town and refers to themselves as a Jedi, you're going to laugh because they don't exist. But then they pull out a laser sword and it boggles your mind. So I kind of fell in line, and I agree with him that aristocratic is the way to go. But for some of those other characters, like say a mystic, I would definitely go with charismatic, the new way they've got it. But you don't even have to go with the new way. You can just add +2 to persuasion if you absolutely have to do it.
Well, that's all aristocratic gives you. I mean, it gives you a brief description and it's an edge, but it says literally, I'm looking it up on page 38, aristocrats add +2 to persuasion when networking. I mean, that's really all it is. It's that simple of a mechanic. It's just a +2 persuasion. You could even change it to aristocrat and just give it combat cyborg edge. You know, you can call it combat cyborg fear or whatever, and he gets a +2 persuasion no matter what he's doing. You know, to talk about knowledge or aristocrats or royalty or anybody seeing a cyborg coming down there, you're going to pay attention.
yeah, so there is basically a way to deal with it inside of SWADE. You know what I mean? Like if you feel like you're losing an edge or an hindrance because you're not getting the +2, -2 depending on what you are, right? That's sort of what I was getting at. You could replace it with aristocratic or charismatic to fill in the slot of that being like a characteristic of your player. Cyber Knights, champion edge requirement has been reduced significantly. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but novice, spirit D8, fighting D6, and it no longer includes miracles in adventure. So the deluxe requirements are, you got to be novice, you got to have arcane background miracles, spirit D8, strength D6, vigor D8, faith D6, fighting D8. It's like the list is like 10 things long, but inside of the adventure edition, it's super simplistic. It's spirit D8, fighting D6.
I think if you're going to play a Cyber Knight, you're going to get the edge and you're going to ignore the requirements.
Yeah, because that's what they're designed for.
That's all they are. They are champions. They're the champions of all of Rift. There's many times where that happens though, right? Where when you're creating characters and it'll tell you this character starts with this edge, but ignore all the other requirements. You just start with it.
And like demons, if you look at the Broad Killer, the Greater Demons, or Thornhead, they will have this little note where they said that they are vulnerable to things with like holy backgrounds, like Cyber Knights, like Mystics.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, side note, Mystics are insanely powerful.
Well, they were already. I can't imagine what they're like in the new version. Multiple spell castings, multiple edges. They don't have to worry about the edge requirements. You know, charisma is no longer a problem for them or a hindrance for them at all. Not that it was much of a bonus to begin with.
This is the next topic that we were going to punch into, is the magics on page 151. So much has changed inside of the magic the magic part of SWADE that it is insane. So right out of the gate, you start with the power modifiers. You can do things like extend the range, cast selective spells. If you want to cast burst on a group, you can say, I want it to hit everybody but my one buddy. You want to put glow on somebody, so when you cast your firebolt or you cast your whatever spell you're casting, it illuminates them or it hides them. There's glow shroud. All of these power modifiers tacked on to also the spells having their own modifiers built in each. Well, not every one, but most spells have a modifier that affects that spell, and then these power modifiers are added on top of them. Okay, this is blowing my mind, because not only this is literally my favorite part of the adventure is the spells, the way that they're set up. And like we were talking just a little bit ago, the spells inside this game inside of Adventure Edition are so changed and so different, and then you put that and you insert that in Rifts where you have ley lines, and with the ley lines in certain characters you can double or triple your spell points.
Yeah.
And siphon power from ley lines. Like, I don't even know where to begin with Adventure Edition magic inside the world of Rifts. I'm just going to put that in your laps and let you guys talk about it, because I'm in awe of what you could do.
You have been able to, in Deluxe, create these, but now it's written out and defined absolutely that you can do this, and it's given a framework to do it with.
Yeah,
like I said,
people have been crying out for that. Exactly that. We want a framework to be able to put together how trappings work, how power modifiers work, how edge powers work, and how they all can be combined into a makeshift system of PowerPoints, no PowerPoints, psionics, magic, mysticism, spiritualism, whatever, in any game that I want to play just using the Savage World. And I think, as far as I've read so far, I think they've done it.
I think they have too. There's certain ones like mind riding. Like, let's say you have a beast companion. You can cast mind riding on your beast companion, and you just are able to see. So, you have a hawk. You're like, throw up your hawk, cast mind ride. You get to just see the whole area. You can do certain things that you couldn't do before. Like when I was writing Pocahontas, I gave her the mind reading power just so she could talk to her raccoon, just so she could see what he was seeing. Now I don't have to do that. Like, it can absolutely be just set for that. Empathy, which is a power that is natural to the Symbian and the Psy Stalkers, that's a power anybody can have. So, literally, you can be a Disney princess and just cast Beast Friend and Empathy, and you've got it down.
I don't even know what to say. I'm just the techno
It's giving
wizard.
you more, Gary. Honestly, it's giving you more. If you think about it like this, you start out with more power points in the Savage Worlds Adventure Editions. You start out with more powers, and that's just for a basic arcane background. So now, regular Savage Worlds Adventure Editions characters almost start out at a power level that they can be, I wouldn't say competitive, but you can play them and not feel like as if they're weaker than the rest in a Savage Rifts game.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to make Savage Rifts characters more powerful is the abilities like you were talking about, Dustin, where empathy is going to be a part of their character from the get-go. No PowerPoints cost or very little. They're going to be able to use it more often or in a powerful way. Same thing with Mystics, anything with an arcane background. A Glitter Boy Armor pilot is going to have better skill set. He's going to start out with a Glitter Boy Armor, but you can still create a character with the Savage Worlds Adventure Editions. And because of the meeting of the two in between in terms of power level edges, PowerPoints, summaries, and the modifiers or whatever, you're going to get more bang for your buck when you're creating a Savage Worlds Adventure Edition character. You're just going to get more. And unfortunately, that exponential growth is going to go into Savage Worlds or Savage Rifts. Also, you're going to get more of the good stuff, more of the juicy bits that everybody likes to chew on when they're playing that game.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that if you take new power, you now get, it's actually been recalled new powers because you get two? So
right, you start out with 2 powers and 15 power points.
Well,
whereas before, you got 1 and 10 power points.
Well, depending on your class, right? Like if if you took miracles, or you get 3 spells or whatever. But in Adventure Edition now, when you take the advancement new power, it's actually new powers, and you get 2. Every time you take that advancement, you get 2. So by the time you're, let's say, 2 advancements in, which would be what, 10 XP. We don't have XP anymore. You would have your, let's say, your initial 3 spells plus another 4. So you'd have 7 spells before you even hit like your what would be seasoned adventurer. Like your spells,
and that's
double.
okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you look at a lot of the other games, there's a lot of Magic users or arcane backgrounds, whatever you want to call them. A lot of the times they have a fast progression rate when it comes to the number of abilities that they get to do. So everybody talks about the first novice, apprentice, wizard, and he can cast magic bolt and shoot an arrow out and it hits the target and it dies. Okay, that's all the spells I can get. Why? Well, I'm out of power. I'm not strong enough yet to cast them. And then 3 or 4 levels later, fireball, lightning bolt, teleport, blink. And like, whoa, what happened? I gained levels. And just a couple of levels. And D&D is a good example. You look at a 19th level wizard and he's going to have literally a plethora of spells to be able to cast. And I think Savage Worlds captures that power curve better now. It's not as steep. Whereas before, in the deluxe edition, they relied upon the settings to drive or change that. Where now it's a little bit better on that curve. I think it is.
What's it called when you have so many decisions or things that you can make that you can't make one?
Overload, sensory overload.
That's where I'm at with Magic.
Yeah. Player indecision, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You get I'm just like locked up Willie with the idea of Magic, because you give me 50 power points as a free action because I'm near a ley line. I guarantee you I am making every friggin' spell do the maximum bloody damage that I can. I'm adding glow.
I can imagine what you can do. I mean, if you take a look at that, even like a first level leyline walker on a rift, you can go spirit times 2. Maximum PPE is twice her normal amount. So you got 25 points. You're talking close to 50 PPE on a leyline with a low level, leyline walker. And now you can do power modifiers, range increases. I mean, wow. Right? Yeah, I want to lightning bolt the guy a mile away at the top of that hill. Psst. Right? That'll be 35 PPE. Sure. For my next action, right? Literally, in Savage Rifts, you're going to be able to do that. And that's awesome. That's why I was saying before, you're going to get more of what you could do before. You're just going to get more.
I am literally... Go ahead, Dustin.
Just consider what you could do on a rift with the puppet power.
Yeah, not on a ley line, on a rift on a nexus point with the puppet power.
Additional.
Wow.
Additional recipients, 2 points. Imagine like a whole team of coalition just comes in and they're just gunning for you, and then they just all turn around and shoot their commanding.
Hello, Mr. Demon. You're not going to control us today. You're going to be my puppet. You're going to go kill the coalition guys for me, and then when you're done, jump back in that hole and back where you came from. Sure. You're going to have no power points left, but who cares? You're on a ley line. Give it 5 minutes. You'll be fine.
I'm super, super excited for Rift's Adventure Edition now. You know what I mean? Like,
like the light bulb. You should see his eyes, lady. Gary's eyes are the size of saucers here. He's like, oh my God, the light bulb just went on.
We've converted him.
I can't remember.
I think he was converted before.
The first time that I did it, but I'm pretty sure it was boost lower trait in our Rippers game. Or we were playing, we're playing Rippers. And it was one of the first, I think it was either that or I don't remember. But when I realized that for like 5 power points, I could hit everybody in the party, and that was my one, and I could still cast a spell, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. This is not Rift's regular Savage Worlds, and I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
You can, like, Artificer is now an edge, so that means you don't even have to do weird science. You can make talismans. You can make potions.
Yeah, I mean, think about that in Rifts, though. Think about that in Rifts terms.
Yeah, the Shaman class in Deadlands has that sort of same deal. You could make a totem, and I think I made one that I could control animals or something like that. We got attacked by spiders, and I threw that totem down. Yeah, I think that's cool. Artificer is wicked cool. There's a lot of neat stuff. You've got power modifiers, mega powers, magic points, and ley lines. And then Dustin, you wanted to talk about the wizard's edge. So all that essentially does is let you change fire to ice, or electric to acid, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and at first you're like, well, that like the old setup was per every raise you got a +1 to it. Now it's way more powerful, because here's what's happening. Certain creatures have certain weaknesses, and now you can adjust your power to that weakness. Blast, bolt, burst. Now you can spend more points so that you can douse that fire elemental with water and still burn that troll. Or if you know that like vampires are like, they can't go near the silver, they can't penetrate it. Well, guess what? That magical armor, it now has silver on it, because you can change the trappings. Those bad guys that were so invincible before because they had a certain thing that you didn't know that was their weakness. If you know that's their weakness, so also pick up knowledge occult so you'll know it. But you can actually spend the points, and you've got that right on hand. And with a mega blast or a mega bolt, you have wrecked that guy's day.
Nice.
That's only one PowerPoint.
One PowerPoint.
One PowerPoint
to set somebody on fire.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Man, Rift's just got a lot harder. My head hurts.
I just wanted
That's
to
why you need the
scroll up
wound
to
cap.
lingering.
Yeah, no, I see that now. Yeah.
So lingering damage. The target is hit by fire, intense cold, acid, gnawing insects, or some other trapping. On the next turn, he suffers the power's base damage -1 die type. This is a power modifier that you can add on to it. So it's like, not only are you effing them up, but you're effing them up once more, and then change the trapping, and then add that on to, add lingering damage, make them glow so everybody else can smash them a little harder. Like,
could you
I love
imagine?
it.
Could you imagine putting glow on smite?
Yes.
So now you hit that vampire, and the light is literally coming from the vampire now. So they're taking 2d4 damage every single round until that. I mean, that's not a lot of damage, but my goodness, it's effectively just
after a couple of smites, it'll be a lot of damage. Smack him around a couple times with that. He'll be glowing like he's literally wearing those glow sticks all over the place.
Yeah, we've turned Mexico into like a poi rave at this point. I mean, the vampire problem is solved.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
We're gonna wrap.
My gosh.
Let's wrap this up. Anything else that you can think of that will affect the world of Rifts? I'm going to start by saying there is one thing that I think is truly cool, which is where I got to find it. It's called Hesitant, and it is a hindrance that you can get. This isn't really going to change the world of Rifts, but I really do like it for this reason. Hesitant is the hindrance that you could put on somebody where they're like, I don't know what I should do. I don't know what I should do. But the cool part is you draw 2 action cards and you act on the lowest. Now that might suck every turn, but you've just increased your chance of getting a joker, which allows you to play as normal by, well, whatever percentage that is. I'm not doing the math on that because I know it's not 50%, but right, you're getting 2 cards every time. I like that. That's almost my second favorite one. You can't take quick and you can't take level-headed with the Hesitant, but you do get 2 cards and get to go last most of the time. What do you got, Dustin?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. I just love some of the ways that edges have changed. Now, I always play like I would normally roll up an investigator. It's going to be a little bit harder for me to roll up an investigator, but to see some of the changes like free runner that allow you to do parkour. I touched on Beast Bond or Beastmaster. Beastmaster looks awesome because I'm a child of the 80s. So I'm going to run around in a loincloth with some ferrets. Probably going to get kicked out of Walmart.
Again. Beastmaster
You're right.
was
Nobody
good.
ever gets kicked out of Walmart.
Wouldn't be the second time.
What were the What were those things that wrapped themselves around the people and then like just ingested them and then just the bones and goop fell out?
They were vampires.
Is that what they
there
were?
are multiple versions of vampires. Like you have leech vampires, you have like trap vampires. Yeah, because they could only come out at night. And like because he was the Beastmaster, he had animal empathy. So he was able to like stare them down and sort of like say, no, I'm a friend. And they were like, okay, we won't eat you. And they were going to eat his lady. And they're like, oh, she's with you? You're going to snack on her later? Okay, fine.
That's such a good old tacky show. Oh man, I did like that was fantastic when I was a kid. I enjoyed watching that show. Speaking of shows from back in the day, Shazam 2019.
Oh man, have you seen the poster for that?
No,
with Shazam's in midair and he's hit, the city's in the background and there's a lightning bolt going through him. Oh my God. Just can't wait for Shazam. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be a great movie.
I think I'm really depressed at the fact that DC has finally figured out the formula after it's burned through all of its popular characters.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Marvel had it done right from almost the beginning.
Yeah. The thing of it is they had to rely on their second stringers. They couldn't go with Spider-Man or the X-Men.
Yeah.
So they built up the Avengers.
Well, I think they had invested so much into the movies of those characters as and you know how the studios go, how they do it. It was a feeler to see how much money they could make off of it. They're like, oh, well, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 and version 2, 3, and 4, and then the Hulk and all these other movies, they did pretty good. Imagine if we put them all together and had a real budget. And then, well, after 10 movies, the studio said, oh, you know what? You're right. You guys are doing good. You probably have something to go there. Let's get Lee on the phone and let's talk about it and give you $100 million to do Avengers 1 and 3. And well, the rest is history.
Influence the story. What's your take, Dustin? I'm not a fan of spending bennies to influence the story. You guys talked about this a little bit, but I poo-poo on the whole thing. Yeah, I don't like it.
Why not?
So one of the things that happens inside of Genesis is the ability to flip a story point. I'm not knocking on Genesis this time around, but when we played it,
don't lie.
No, Harrison would constantly flip story points. So we were out in the forest and we found this guy that was doing something and we wanted to handcuff him. And Harrison flips a story point and he's like, yes, when I was back in town on my way out, we passed a store that sells like a general goods store or whatever. And I just so happened to roll in there and buy a pair of handcuffs. 20 minutes later, we're doing something else and some other dudes roll through and Harrison flips another story point. He's like, actually, when I was in that store, I bought 2 pairs of handcuffs. And I'm just like, oh, dude, I just feel it's lame. I'm not a fan.
My deal is...
Go ahead, Dustin, go ahead.
As the teammate, the first thing I'm thinking is, bro, it was just me and you in the bunk. Why are you buying so many handcuffs?
Right? It's gonna be a very uneasy campfire that's gonna be laid that night.
It's like, hey, does this chili taste funny to you? It's just I'm going to sleep. Good night, guys.
I can solve that with just one sentence. You have a GM problem, not a Benny's problem.
That is correct.
I allow my characters and my players to make changes to the plot, the meta plot, the immediate plot, the immediate actions of the enemy. They pretty much can run rampant, but they know that they can only do that once a session. And by once a session, I mean one person can change one thing once, not every person at the table, one person once only. If you want to change that vampire into friendly vampire, okay. But they also know that I have the right to do the same later on when they don't like it. So if the GM allows that every single time, I would speak to your GM and say, hey, I think it's a cool concept, but not, every time we need a pair of handcuffs, all of a sudden he happens to have a pair.
Yeah, we've already kind of got adventure cards. We've already got the ability to spend bennies to re-roll a negative outcome. Now we're allowing bennies to be spent so that you could have a pair of handcuffs at the appropriate time. I think that detracts from the story because what I would really like to see is them figure out a way to tie up this guy without having the exact cool thing that they need to lock this guy down. Because Do you know what I mean?
No, totally agree with you. I think that's where my game at the table, where when I'm playing Savage Rifts, I don't use adventure. There's too much stuff going on already. There's too many caveats to every single caveat. Plus, I give them the one Benny to use, whoever needs it whenever they need it. There's always that one out for them. But they know if you use that to change it before the night's over, Victor's going to screw us again. Because that's part of the rule. That's part of the game. That's part of the give and take, at least in my opinion. Because you can't, it's great that we give characters options and we give players options. But come on, there's only so much you can take as a GM. When you're running the game, the last thing you need is for them. Everybody drops 7 bennies. The sun comes down in a solar flare, kills the demon, and knocks it back into the rift. While that sounds cool, it totally ruins the game for the GM. So you have to have some kind of limitations. But that's how I play at my table. And that's the way it should be. Play it however you like it. If you don't want to use bennies that way, don't.
There's a setting rule in SWADE called hard choices. The GM doesn't start with any bennies.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yes.
But anytime the player spends a benny, it goes to the GM. So literally, yeah. So literally, if you got one of those smarmy guys that wants to like make the game all cheeky, like just as soon as he does and you're ready to hit him, you just hold up that benny he gave you. Just keep it in your hand and just let
how you
him
like
know,
me now.
This is what you gave me. You earned this.
Let him have it. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure that's all we got for SWADE conversion and rifts and how it's going to affect the game. So let's get into the fray, Victor. We're going to take us out with some sweet-ass show notes, my man.
Whoa! Bloody hell! Oh man, I love this guy. Do we have to go yet? Yes. Oh please. Of course we do. We've got work to do. Please can we stay just a little bit longer? Stop it, Jeffrey. Right, come on back through the rift there. Fine. Can you hear?
Now I'm going to start. Well, the sweet sound of that rift opening means it's time to pack up and portal out. Take us out with some fresh contact info. Vivacious Victor. Vivacious Victor.
I got a new name.
I don't know. I don't know when I wrote that in there, but giddy up, sweet cheeks.
Anyways, you can reach us at the murderhoboshow@gmail.com. Get us on Twitter. We have now officially moved to Mewe. Thank you, Gary, for putting that together, moving those guys over, moving all the stuff. Even the Savage Rift stuff's gone over there. I know there's a lot of people coming over from Google Plus every day. So please come on over to Mewe. Check out the Murder Hobo Show page. Check out the Savage Rifts page. Lots of people, lots of fun. And we are no longer posting to the Google Plus sites. Gary and I have both deleted our profiles, and we cannot be reached there because in about maybe 6 to 8 weeks, Google Plus go bye-bye. So links to the Murder Hobo Show on Mewe will be in the show notes. You can also find out all the Great Nerds International Show on Mewe as well. Reach out directly to me, Victor the Savage Rifter, over on Mewe. You can hit me up on my email address. You can hit me up all over. Just type in Ezra Harden in your Google search page. My name shows up all over the place.
I like that Dustin calls it Mewe and we call it Mewe. 'Cause I don't know how to pronounce it. Be sure to swing by the Murder Hobo Show on Podbean and check out the show notes for some links to cool, creative people and places, things, this is and that.
Yeah, go check out Roleplayers Imaginarium.blog. I checked that out before. We've looked at it on and off throughout the year as we've been doing these podcasts, and it runs a great blog. It's some really great ideas over there. Go check that out. You can find the links in the show notes.
Sweet. Don't forget to catch our other podcast, Threats, Streets, and Timers, where we talk about ICRPG, the index card role-playing game.
Yeah.
That was the part you were supposed to read, Victor, but forgot to.
Oh, then I'll read your part. Thanks for listening, everybody, and be sure to tune in next time. We'll have another action-packed show. We'll be tackling more of the character section in the player's guide, and that's an old note because we did the character section like months ago. There's a lot more material going on in the amazing universal setting known as Savage Rifts, and if you have not picked up your Savage Worlds Adventure Edition book PDF, go check it out. Go get it. Go pick it up. Pinnacle.com.
Dustin, pimp your goods, buddy.
If you want to, you can find Atomic Ninja Studios on drivethrurpg.net or .com. Either or. Look both places, but look for Atomic Ninja Studios. Upcoming, we'll have Dead End, a zombie survival guide. Pick up one-shot wonders. Pay what you want, but, as per someone's request, maybe you just pay $1 and then buy Adventure Archetypes at full price. Check out the GM podcast, the Savage GM podcast on iTunes, Savage GM or SWGM. Look for us on YouTube. Look for us on Podbeam. I think Jared might be updating it at last. And, come in. Convince them to let me talk about Star Wars. I need to talk about Star Wars. I've had a great time, guys. Thanks for having me on.
On the next Murder Hobo show, we'll do a whole Star Wars segment. How's that sound? Just for shits and giggles.
That sounds great.
Right on. All right. Peace out. Thanks, everybody. We're done. The Murder Hobo Show is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and education or review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Murder Hobo Show, copyright 2018, all rights reserved.